Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Tesla Motors Incorporated third quarter 2011 financial results and Q&A conference call. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. To queue up to ask a question at any time during the call, please press star and then 1 on your touchtone keypad. As a reminder, today's conference call is being recorded, and if you require operator assistance during the presentation, please press star and then 0. Now, I would like to turn the conference over to your host, Jeff Evanson.
Thank you, Matthew, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tesla Motors third quarter 2011 financial results Q&A session. I'm joined today by Elon Musk, Tesla's Chairman, CEO, and Chief Product Architect, and Deepak Ahuja, Tesla's Chief Operating Officer. We announced our financial results for the third quarter shortly after 1 p.m. Pacific time today. The shareholder letter, financial results, and webcast of this Q&A session are all available at the company's investor relations website at ir.teslamotors.com. Like last quarter, this call will consist of some brief remarks by Elon, followed by time for questions and answers. We will conduct the Q&A session live, so if you have not already done so, please log in now if you wish to ask a question. During the course of this call, we may discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. Such statements are only predictions based on management's current expectations. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent Form 10-Q filed with the SEC. Such forward-looking statements represent our views only as of today and should not be relied upon after today. We also disclaim any obligation to update these forward-looking statements. And now, let me pass the call to Elon.
Hi, thanks for joining us. I think we can proceed directly to questions. Since there's no point in me reading something that you already have. Jeff, let's just go directly to questions.
Thank you. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to ask a question, please press star, then 1. Our first question comes from Adam Jonas of Morgan Stanley. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks, everybody. Elon, first question. The long-term supply contract with Panasonic, you said it gives you increased visibility on variable costs for cells, but do you also have increased confidence in the cost, i.e., based on what you've seen so far, is it better than you thought? And the second part to that question is, if over time you have a competing supplier that offers a lower-cost solution, do you have any opt-out from Panasonic? And if so, what are some of the costs or types of costs for that opt-out? Thanks.
Sure. So we do have firm pricing from Panasonic. So we have very good predictability as to what the price will be over the next, 4 years. We are not obligated to purchase all of those cells. So it is possible for us to, if Panasonic becomes uncompetitive, to exit the deal with relatively small. There's some penalty, but it's quite small. Now that being said, I feel pretty confident that Panasonic is going to be in the lead position from a cell manufacturing standpoint for quite some time, and we have pretty good visibility into what others are doing. So I think we've got the best cell partner in the world, and someone who's going to remain the best for quite a while. Now, we do expect over that period of time, let's say the next 4 years, to make a lot more cars than we've currently talked about, the Panasonic deal, which is on the order of 80,000. So that definitely leaves room for a second source if that's supposed to make sense.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Can I ask a question about leasing? Any progress on making or establishing any leasing partner as you get closer to the commercial launch of Model S?
Yeah, I've actually we've had a number of conversations, but have just decided to deprioritize that initially because there really doesn't seem to be a need to have leasing take place in certainly the first 6 months, but I think maybe even in the first 12 months. So better for us to focus on more important things. We could certainly get a leasing deal done. But it just doesn't seem to be necessary to achieve our volume targets, in the first, call it 6 to 12 months.
Okay, that's all I have. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Dan Galvez with Deutsche Bank. Your line is open.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my questions. I just wanted to ask, can you just give us an update on kind of what's left to be done before launch of the Model S? How do you feel like your suppliers are performing? Is there anything you're worried about in terms of suppliers on time or tooling getting to you guys on time?
Well, things are going very well. I mean, sort of reluctant to say things are going very well because, in case that jinxes things, but things are going very well. We have over 90% of the factory tooling and equipment in place. I don't really know of any one thing that I would call out as being particularly risky, but there's a lot of little things, that could potentially go awry. But what I'm trying to make sure is that we have the agility to respond to any one of those things. So we have sort of a special forces team, that's in the engineering and manufacturing side that can go and tackle any specific problem once it arises, but that we don't know what it is yet. If that makes any sense. Things look great. I mean, I don't really have anything to complain about right now. We do want to make sure this car is as close to perfect as possible. I think we could ship cars sooner than July if we had lower standards in that regard. But we want to really create a good impression with customers from the moment they receive the car. So,
okay,
we don't want to rush to market.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. And then my next question is related to the mix of vehicles. When do you expect to kind of let the reservation holders start specifying or speccing the cars? And I guess, more longer term, do you feel like you have the flexibility to kind of meet whatever mix of vehicles comes at you in terms of options, battery sizes, and that type of thing?
Yeah. In fact, we're just deciding that right now, which is to figure out what is the best way to price the various options, such that it strikes a good happy medium between customer value perception and gross margin, the cumulative gross margin to Tesla. We really want to put a lot of thought into that. But and we may need to adapt, obviously, after if our assumptions are wrong after we put out the option mix. But we do expect to have that out before the end of this year. So I'd say December at the latest.
Okay. Yep. And is there any? I mean, you feel like you've got the flexibility to kind of meet whatever mix of vehicles people end up ordering.
Yeah, I think so. Now for the first several months of production, we're going to constrain the option mix to a pretty high. You have to basically you have to order stuff that's got a pretty high option mix initially. So, for example, we said this several months ago. for the first 5 months or so, we won't be offering the 160-mile range vehicle. It'll just be the 300-mile and 230-mile range. And there'll be probably there will be a couple other options that are kind of mandatory in the initial period. So that makes it easier for us to constrain the number of variables in the start of production, so we don't have too many variations of vehicles coming out the factory. And I think that's sort of the best way to take advantage of early demand. It's kind of like when they bring out a new CPU or something like that, it would initially be expensive and then go down later, as production increased. So we're kind of insisting that people buy the heavily optioned car initially, at least for the first several months.
Okay, makes sense. One more, if I could. Based on the CapEx guidance, it looks like the CapEx is going up a little bit, slightly next quarter. Will that represent the peak of the CapEx spend for the next several quarters? And any indication you can give us on kind of the trajectory of, well, you're not really burning cash because you're drawing the loan, but in terms of operating cash flow and CapEx, the trajectory of the negatives over the next several quarters, will it be moderating?
Deepak, would you like to take that?
Sure, Dan. It's on a full-year basis, as you can see, we have taken down the CapEx guidance slightly. Although in the big scheme of things, that timing difference really doesn't change things and doesn't matter much. It's difficult for us to predict exactly what the quarterly CapEx is, given some of the timing issues and how we pay suppliers. So I think as we pull together our 2012 guidance and share that with you at the end of during the Q4 earnings call, we can give you a better sense at that point of how CapEx will be spread through the year.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Andrea James of Doherty & Company. Your line is open.
Hello, good afternoon.
Okay.
So in the quarter letter, it says something about CapEx may come in at the low end of guidance, and then you go on to say, in spite of controlled expenditures on certain projects, and you want to keep that confidential. And I guess any type of context would be helpful. What are you trying to convey by sharing that sort of mysterious detail? And then what are investors supposed to take away from it?
Well, I guess I mentioned this on the last earnings call, which is I think it makes sense strategically to keep a few cards close to our vest and not reveal sort of everything. And that's essentially that's part of what I'm trying to hint at there. But I think those are sort of smart decisions that should. I mean, the things that we're doing, they're very important for long term, and when we do unveil them, I think most people will agree that they're sensible things to do. But we're not spending a ton on that, but we're spending enough to make sure that when the timing is right, we can be quick to market with a few things that I think people aren't expecting. Sorry to be so obtuse, but previously we've always been extremely open about things, and I just want to make the point that strategically going forward, there's a few things that it doesn't make sense to be completely open about for competitive strategic reasons.
Okay, and one more, and then I'll hop back in the queue. So we see the Smart for 2 program winding down, and now it looks like you might have something new and Mercedes-related. I guess, how do we think about that, the size relative to the Smart for 2 program?
In deference to Daimler, I can't make any specific comments about this deal. We'll really wait until they're ready to talk about it some more. I'd love to talk about it, but I do need to be respectful of our one of our key strategic partners.
When do you think you'll be able to speak more about it?
Well, hopefully around the end of this year. But that's really going to be upon the mutual consent of Daimler and us. I mean, so it's when they're ready to talk about it, then that's when we talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Himanshu Patel of J.P. Morgan. Your line is open.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. Couple questions. Elon, on the last call, you had made a vague reference to some additional strategic opportunities. Was that the Daimler LOI? Was that what that was in reference to?
No. I was referring to something different.
Okay. Number two, can you
just nothing disclosed? Yeah.
Could you guys talk a little bit to just Roadster volume? You know, the quarterly cadence really kind of picked up. It looks like you sold 3 times as many. Or I guess the growth rate, is 45 units more than Q2, which seemed like it was 3 times as fast as what you saw Q1 to Q2. What kind of happened in the third quarter, and is there any way for us to think about kind of the quarterly cadence of Roadster volumes, and is there any seasonal trends here that we should be thinking about either?
Yeah, I mean, Roadster, of course, was always intended to be kind of a limited production vehicle, and there certainly is some seasonality, given that it is a convertible sports car. So it will tend to sell a little bit better in summer than in winter. But I mean, I wouldn't read too much into Roadster sales one way or the other. The biggest value of the Roadster has to Tesla is really as kind of an advanced scout to help us understand how to make an electric vehicle, how it operates in all sorts of different countries and different climates and regulatory regimes. And it's kind of a beachhead, So, and it's really served its purpose very well. But we're really not moving away from that to the next major phase of things with the Model S. I think that's what really matters in the long term. Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess if you guys could speak a little bit to the kind of pace of reservation book building on the Model S. It looks like you're doing about 300, 350, reservations a month here. Is there something to the pace of that we should be thinking about prospectively? Does it ever become nonlinear at one stage? It sounds like you're starting to be a lot more aggressive on the marketing, but I'm just wondering if you guys had a view on how we should think about that.
Well, the rate of Model S reservations does appear to be accelerating, I should point out we're not paying for any advertising, so it's not as though we actually advertise the Model S. We get a lot of press, and obviously we have our stores, and our sales team, particularly in North America, is starting to shift its focus from the Roadster or has shifted its focus at this point, at least, from the Roadster to the Model S. But it is noteworthy that without advertising, that you're seeing this growth. I think that probably a lot of people don't realize that. This is just word of mouth, and obviously our sales team. But I think something that people who are interested in buying the Model S should appreciate is that if the Model S reservations continue to continue to accelerate, that it's very important for them to put down a deposit soon or that they'll be getting a car in 2014. I think sometimes people are under the impression that the Model S is kind of like how other cars are, where there's a ton of them on the lot and you can just go to the lot and buy one, but that's not the case. They're all sold out way in advance.
Okay, and then I guess one last question. I think in the press release you guys make a reference to OpEx rising slightly as you kind of prep for the factory launch. Deepak, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about it. The $74 million non-GAAP OpEx number this quarter. How does that sort of move over the next 2-3 quarters? Does it? I guess I'm trying to understand. Is that a linear sort of mild rise, or does it sort of have a big spike in Q1 or Q2?
Sure. And before that, let me just add that our reservations in Q3 for Model S were 1,150, so they were closer to between 350 and 400 a month, and as compared to 1,000 in Q2. So there was clearly an increase in Q3 that we saw. And then in terms of OpEx, as you know, all our manufacturing-related expense, in addition to R&D, is being booked as OpEx until we are in the launch mode for the Model S. At that point, our manufacturing expenses will move out of R&D into cost of goods sold. As a result, as we continue to hire more people, and we'll hire more of the production workforce in the next few quarters and start training them and getting ready, clearly our manufacturing-related expenses will continue to increase, and that's going to drive our OpEx primarily. At the same time, we'll see some decline in Model S development expenses as some of the testing and supplier ED&T work gets done. So there's a bit of in and out happening. But it's really, once we are in the production mode of Model S and manufacturing expenses are in cost of goods sold, then we'll see an appreciable drop in OpEx.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question in queue comes from Carter Driscoll of Capstone Investments. Your line is open.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I want to ask the first question, if I may, about maybe you could add some additional color about the Model X, what you're hoping to unveil in December. Do you think you will be able to have an alpha model produced by then? Could you maybe compare and contrast the Model X with the Model S in a little bit more detail? If I understand correctly, you are going to be using the same powertrain and chassis. Could you maybe just drill down a little bit without revealing anything you don't want to, compare why the Model S would be in one segment versus the Model X being targeted at another type of customer segment?
Sure. I don't want to give away too much because obviously there wouldn't be much of an unveiling. But whereas the Model S, our goal was to address the premium sedan and to some degree premium SUV market. With the Model X, we're also trying to bridge a market, but we're trying to address primarily the SUV market, bridging to the minivan market. So what we're trying to achieve with the Model X is to have more functionality than a minivan, meaning it's easier to get in and out of. You can pack more cargo along with people, and that's. I mean, I think that's really missing. It's right now. For a lot of people, I know that they're forced to buy a minivan and they kind of hate it, but they need the functionality. So we want to give them that functionality. In fact, we want to give them more than that functionality in something that looks really cool.
So better specs, a little bit more functionality. Do you anticipate that you'll be able to price segment? I imagine the minivan segment is a tad more price sensitive than the premium sedan group.
Well, there's premium SUV. I mean, I know a lot of people who can afford to pay a lot more for a minivan, but there's just nothing that's out there to buy. But there isn't really a premium minivan. there's certainly premium SUVs, like Porsche Cayenne and whatnot. But I mean, it's like something like Porsche Cayenne. It's got like less room than some sedans. It's like a sedan with a more ride height. It doesn't even look that great. Sorry.
That's fair criticism. All right. Thank you for that elaboration. Could you also maybe just talk? You made, I guess, public statement that you expect to reach net profitability in 2013. Could you talk about what you're expecting? Obviously, the first 6 months, you're trying to limit the option range to reduce the level of potential production defects and tightly control that initially. Could you talk about, in 2013, where you think the mix of options and range, whether you're talking the 160, the 230, or the 300, where you think that mix will be to get you to that 25% targeted gross margin line, and what the variables might be that would increase it above or below?
Well, I can give you obviously, it's just my best guesses. I think most people are going to probably want the 230 mile range car. I think a lot of people are going to want the 300 plus mile car. Especially, we think it'll probably do 310 to 320 miles range. And there's some other advantages to that car. In that we're going to be offering a much longer battery warranty. There's some cool things that we're going to tie into long distance intercity fast charging. So I think we'll see probably most people at the 230, then next largest being the 300, and then the 160. And then there's a number of other options that are pretty cool. I mean, the roof, we have the biggest roof opening of any car, I believe, that any sedan or SUV or anything. In fact, I think the Model S panoramic roof is the closest thing you can get to having a convertible without it being a convertible. I think a lot of people want to pick that option. The air suspension, which is able to dynamically adjust the ride height according to the load of the car, and it also improves efficiency on the highway because it can hunker down. You can raise the car going through heavy snow and ice. I think a lot of people, I hope a lot of people pick that option, because I think a lot of people don't even realize you can, like, how cool an option that is. So it kind of depends on how well we can convey the value of having that.
That's very helpful. Maybe just switch gears quickly, and then I'll flip back into queue. Could you give me a view of where the charging infrastructure is nationally, regionally, and where you expect it to be over the next 12 to, say, 24 months, and whether you think that does support a higher production level that you're hoping to achieve in 2013, and then obviously a lot of competitor vehicles that will also need that infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we're going to have a very exciting announcement about intercity charging, or intercity supercharging, if you will. So we developed this, what we call the Tesla supercharger, which is a 90 kilowatt charger, and I think we're hoping to have the first one installed between San Francisco and LA, probably in the January or February time frame, and then there's a whole rollout schedule for that. We're planning on doing a fair bit of press around the unveiling of the first one, because I mean, when you see what this looks like in a highway rest stop parking lot, it's like the coolest thing. It looks like an advanced alien artifact landed in the middle of this high, otherwise drab. Well, it's not that drab in some cases, they're okay, but it just looks amazing, and will allow people to charge their cars to charge 150 miles in 30 minutes, so that you can park plug your car in, grab a bite to eat, to the bathroom, come back and continue your journey. But I'm probably getting ahead of myself on that.
That's very helpful. Obviously, you guys stay on top of legislative developments that affect electric vehicles. Could you talk about some of the noise that perhaps there might be a surcharge in terms of Congress worried about losing the gas tax as EVs proliferate, and how that may or may not impact sales?
Well, I think that's a high-class problem because if there's that many EVs, it pretty much means we won. So it would mean we're selling so many cars that it actually matters to the grid. I think we're probably more than a decade away from that. What we've seen from the Roadster is the vast majority of charging occurs at night in somebody's garage, which I guess one would intuitively expect. So, and the grid capacity at night, there's huge amounts of capacity. So it seems to fit well with the existing infrastructure.
Appreciate you taking my questions. I'll jump back into Q now.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Steve Milinovich from Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Your line is open.
Thank you very much. Could you comment a bit about how you take back customer feedback and any changes that you're looking to make post the reveal on October 1st? Obviously, you've generally had very good reviews, but there's been some concerns about seat comfort and a few other things. Do you have the ability or interest in taking that in and potentially making any changes for the production model?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's no way. We emphasized it was really a beta that people were getting a test ride in because there's 1,000 little details that we want to improve from the beta. My goal for the car is to be as close to perfect as possible. And certainly the seats need to be extremely comfortable. Everything needs to be as close to perfect as possible. You obviously can't be there in a beta, so we try to set people's expectations appropriately. But I think all of the concerns that I've heard people express about the beta are concerns that we're already planning to address.
Okay. And then as I recall last quarter, you had discussed potentially a large contract. I thought that was with Toyota, and you had suggested it could be an order of magnitude larger than what you've done before. Would you like to provide any update on that thinking?
I think we remain quite optimistic about the future relationship with Toyota. Along with Daimler, they're a key strategic partner. And things seem to be going very well. So, as with Daimler, I always prefer to take my cue from a strategic partner before making too much before talking about something too much. So I think stay tuned on that front.
Okay, thank you. It was worth a shot. Then finally, as you pointed out, you haven't had to advertise yet. When you begin to ship the car, you'll obviously have enough demand for some period of time, so you won't necessarily need to advertise then. But when do you plan on advertising? And when you do start to ship, I would think it might be worth, from a branding standpoint, beginning to get out there in any case.
Yeah, definitely. At some point, we'll do advertising. But I think it'll be a few years before we do advertising. There's just, if we're production limited, then there's not much point in spending money on advertising. But we want to get to the point where we're not production limited, and then advertising can make sense. So I guess we'll probably start some advertising in 2013. Yeah, that's just a guess. But we may not need to in 2013, but I wouldn't say it wouldn't be any sooner than 2013.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Our next question is from Aditya Oberoi with Goldman Sachs. Your line is open.
Great. Thanks a lot. Can you provide some color around the costs you are incurring in Europe related to the Roadster issue?
Oh, you mean with respect to the Top Gear unfairly trashing us?
Yes.
Well, I'd be a little bit careful because we do have an ongoing legal action there. And we're just trying to right a wrong, essentially. Tesla was really wrong by that show, and it left a negative lasting impression in the UK, particularly because that's where Top Gear is strongest. And so we just got to change that bad data point that's been conveyed. And I think we're making some progress in that direction. If we want to, I don't want to say anything that would negatively affect our legal case there. So I'll have to probably not say any more before I put my foot in my mouth.
Or maybe I can ask it another way, that you guys mentioned that you guys are incurring additional costs to correct consumer misperception. So are these costs related to advertising, or are they more of just legal costs?
Yes, it's not advertising, but certainly legal costs. Marketing. We do execute marketing events. We have salespeople on salary, and of course, then there's a little bit of brand damage. But I mean, we'll correct that brand damage over time, but it's still there. Yeah.
Got it. And can you talk a little bit about what are those 10% of things that are left at the Fremont facility, as you guys mentioned that you are almost 90% there?
Yeah, it's less with each passing week. I mean, so the doors and closures, basic closures, which is sort of doors, bonnet, and trunk. The assembly equivalent for that is arriving, but hasn't completely arrived. That's like one example. But I think we expect to have that in the next month or two. And then the next big thing after that will be the stamping dies for the body panels. So those are being made by a Fuji partner on that front. We should have all of the equipment in place by the end of this year, and then it's going to be working. We have to work really hard to iron out any of the bugs in the overall manufacturing line.
And to add to Elon's information here, a lot of this equipment is at our suppliers and it's being tested, including the body enclosures line. And when the trials are completed and if they're fully acceptable to us, they get shipped to us. So a lot of progress happening at our suppliers at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I should have mentioned that. Haslam, who's our supplier for those assemblies, they built it up at their facility and they're debugging it at their facility, and then once it's debugged, they ship it to us. So in principle, at least at the manufacturing module level, stuff has been debugged, and then we're just kind of what we have to do just Fremont is debugging the module-to-module interactions, as stuff moves from one part of the line to the next. So that should minimize overall manufacturing line risk.
And while we're doing this, we are continuing to do the beta builds in our Fremont factory. So even though we may not have the full automation, in some cases our suppliers can provide us those parts based on the automation in their facility. And that's allowing us to then continue doing the build-out and just refining and learning our own manufacturing processes and interacting with our suppliers as well.
Right, exactly like that. When Fuji makes the stamping dies and they first stamp a bunch of panels, in Japan or Taiwan, wherever the case may be, and then they send us those parts and the stamping die.
That's very helpful. And one last one, if I may ask. The contract you guys signed with Panasonic, is it just for Model S or all the vehicles that will be on the Model S architecture?
We plan on using a common battery cell, so it would apply to all vehicles that it would apply to more than just the Model S. Not necessarily to all vehicles, but to more than just the Model S.
Got it. Great. Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Ben Callow of Robert W. Baird, and your line is open.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I wanted to focus on the retail strategy. It looks like you're going to end the year with about 25 stores, I think, is the number. Can you kind of talk about how reservations have changed for the Model S, if you're seeing reservations actually come from the stores or from surrounding areas, whether it's on the Internet? And then also, can you talk about what metrics each of those locations are going to be judged on as you go forward? Is there actual targets for reservations at each store?
Yeah, we see most of our reservations coming from the stores, particularly the ones that have high foot traffic. I mean, we're still at the early stages, so it's difficult to say what should a store do. But I mean, the early indications are very, very promising. We're just seeing an incredible number of people come through our stores in the high traffic shopping malls. And even if they don't buy a car now, we've kind of planted the seed for them to buy a car in the future, whether it's the Model S, Model X, or future sort of third-generation vehicle. So we think our store strategy is showing itself to be very powerful and fundamentally different from how things have historically been in the auto business. Most people don't have a positive experience buying a car, and for some, they sort of look at it like it's a dental appointment. We want to go to the complete opposite side of things, where you're magnetically drawn into the Tesla store. It's just a really appealing place to be, and we actually don't have. They're not really salespeople, but product specialists. They're just there to sort of explain anything you want to know about the Model S or electric vehicles in general. And it seems to be really going well. We sell clothing as well. We've actually done quite a good business in Tesla clothing, which is an unexpected revenue source.
And so along those lines, what's the strategy and then the rollout of actually having Model S vehicles at each location? Because I guess seeing is believing in some ways.
Sure, absolutely. And certainly it has a big impact if we've got a Model S beta there or not. For the next few months, we have a dichotomy, which is we need beta vehicles for testing, and we need beta vehicles so that customers can see them. So we have to make a tough trade between those two competing priorities. But that's not going to be an issue, a few months from now. So we'll start deploying the cars to all of the stores in the first quarter.
Okay, and then my last question is on the testing front. Any update on where you are as far as safety testing goes?
Yeah, the safety testing is looking really good. I've set an extremely high bar, which is to be 5-star crash rated in every category. And from what I'm told, if we achieve that, we will be the only car that is 5-star crash rated in every category by 2012 standards. So that's looking extremely good. Now, we have a fundamental advantage here with the Model S, which is that because we do not have a large engine block in the front, in fact, we've got a front trunk, that gives us a much longer crumple zone than is possible in other premium sedans. I'm not sure what the right analogy is here, but if you think of it like if you jump out of a 5-story window, you probably want to jump into an Olympic-sized swimming pool rather than a kiddie pool. Having that long crumple zone means that you can you can spread out the deceleration of the car over a much longer distance, whereas otherwise a gasoline sedan can't do that because it would just shove the engine right through your chest. And that's part of why we can, that fundamentally that superior architecture is why we think we've got a shot at making this the safest car in the world.
Great. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Our next question is a follow-up from Andrea James of Doherty & Company. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks for letting me lob in one more. So I thought this was interesting. You saw in the UK that a TV show can affect the business in a negative and also in a quantifiable way. And so the logical follow-up to me would be, did you see a quantifiable effect from the Model S event and the subsequent positive media? And then if so, how did it track with what your expectations were after the event? Thanks.
Sure. We definitely had a positive impact from the Model S beta event. And with roughly 3,000 people came to visit our factory in Fremont, many of them coming from countries all around the world. And our goal there was actually not media. It was really to let our customers know that their faith was not misplaced. That was the most important thing. So in order to come to the event, you have to be a Model S reservation holder. And, so we wanted to show this is what the car is, at least in beta form, with the test rides. And then this is our factory, and it's real, and the equipment's there. And so when they go home and they talk to their friends and colleagues, they can speak with confidence that they've been in the car and they've seen the factory. And they're really the best people to sell a product are your existing customers. Because they don't really have any incentives. That was the main goal, and I think that's been effective and will continue to be effective. And the media was also very positive and helpful as well.
Did you see reservations increase, or did you see some of the $5,000 convert over to the 40?
We did. So there's 1,000 cars in the Signature Series, and there's only a few hundred left, actually. So we're now 700 and something of the Signature Series have been reserved. And in fact, the only way to get a car next year is if you buy one of the couple hundred remaining Signature Series cars. So we saw a number of people convert to that. It was an awesome event. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Ben Rose of Battle Road Research. Your line is open.
Good afternoon. Based upon the feedback from the betas with regard to the use of materials in the Model S, are you thinking any differently about possibly using carbon fiber or other advanced materials in the Model X and other forthcoming vehicles?
Yeah, we'll be offering carbon fiber as well as a couple of wood trim options. One being lace wood, which is kind of a cool kind of black wood, and then the other being banana leaf. It's fallen banana leaf. So if somebody's looking for the moral high ground, I don't think we could find better moral high ground than fallen banana leaf as the choice of wood trim. And we'll continue to try to add some interesting options over time. And there will be some things that are unique to the Model X, certainly. We really want to drive drive innovation on almost every front with cars. And whatever we can think of that has the potential to amaze and delight our customers, we want to do that.
Okay. And then just one final question with regard to your plans for future vehicles, sort of broadly defined. Is it possible that you would look at some other kinds of off-road categories and maybe sort of non-traditional automotive categories where you could parlay your electric expertise?
Well, I think we need to stay focused on the Model S, and then that's really sort of the vast majority of our focus, and then the Model X, which the Model X, by the way, is going to be a pretty great off-roading vehicle because it also have that air suspension so you can raise the ride height, and it's going to have a particularly killer four-wheel drive system. We think probably the best four-wheel drive system of any car, period. So that should cover us, I think, reasonably well on the off-roading front. Long term, it's possible we could go into a wide range of areas, but I think in the short to medium term, it's very important to stay focused.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Jesse Pitchell of Jefferies. Your line is open.
Hi, this is Elaine Quay for Jesse. Thanks for taking our question. Just to follow up on Ben Callow's earlier question, what exactly is left in terms of the federal and state crash testing and other requirements needed to get a new car on the road and to qualify for the different incentives out there, such as HOV lanes? Have a couple of Model S's already been sacrificed, or will they be soon?
Actually, we've now sacrificed quite a few Model S's to crash testing. I think probably approaching a dozen, and there's another dozen to come as we iterate through we do as much as you can with simulations, and you do the crash test to calibrate and validate the simulation, and you go through a series of iteration cycles. We're very close to the end of that. I think the final crash tests are really confirmatory of that we've made the correct changes. So that's all looking really good. And as far as HOV, well, because the Model S is pure electric, any state that has HOV preference for pure electric, such as California, you'll be able to drive in the carpool lane without a problem, as you can right now with the Roadster.
Great.
And being pure electric, we don't have we don't have sort of EPA issues to deal with because we don't have any direct emissions. So.
Great. And now that we're talking about a car that could potentially be adopted in much greater numbers than some of the prior, maybe perhaps more niche EVs, are you engaging with any local utilities or anything like that in discussions about potential customer issues with charging? Will there be smart charging apps built in? I guess it's kind of an idiot-proofing question. So, there's, in case of any potential issues of crashing transformers or people tripling their PG&E bills?
So we've got a fair bit of experience with that with the Roadster. Not with tripling, not with tripling PG&E bills. Not with the bad stuff you mentioned, but in terms of working out the bugs with charging and knowing what's going to be an issue with houses out there and what that's where the Roadster has been really, really valuable. So where we did make mistakes with the Roadster, we made them at a small scale in order to avoid making them at a large scale with the Model S and subsequent vehicles. So I think we've got a pretty good handle on things, and there's a lot of intelligence in the charge algorithms of the Model S, even more so than the Roadster. The vehicle sort of automatically adapts to the input charging, the current and voltage, so as not to create problems with whatever circuit's feeding it. So it's got a really intelligent feedback loop.
Hey, Matthew, we want to keep the call to an hour, so if there are any more questions, let's go to the last caller, please.
Okay, our final question will come from Brian Russell of Russell Group. Your line is open.
Thank you. Good evening. Real quick on the stores, as you ramp up to a higher volume and get past the initial reservations, what are the plans for trade-ins? How's that going to be handled?
We definitely want to enable trade-ins, and we're talking to a couple of large used car groups in the country to be able to handle that in a seamless manner for customers. So we will have that ability to deal with trade-ins for the Model S. For the Roadster, we kind of sidestepped that issue, and it wasn't really all that important for the Roadster, but for the Model S, it certainly is.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Yeah, look forward to the next quarter.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your participation on today's conference. This does conclude the program, and you may now disconnect.